Okay, we're back to talk about Murderbot Episode 4, the show airing on Apple TV Plus. Episode 4 is titled Escape Velocity Protocol and written by Chris Weitz and Paul Weitz and directed by Toa Fraser. Episode 4 opens in a factory where workers, who seem to be indentured servants, build sec units. Each one of these units has a different face, which makes it easier to track if they go rogue, which is apparently something that happens regularly. These workers create parts from flesh and metal and are encouraged to take pride in their work. Picking up on the cliffhanger from episode 3, Murderbot is dragged down a hallway by the bot who shot him and attempts to insert a combat override module into Murderbot before it can regain its capabilities. Despite putting up a fight, the bot inserts the module into Murderbot, which means it will lose all control of its functions in 10 minutes. The Preservation Alliance did not leave, as Murderbot requested, so Mensa arrives and attacks the unnamed bot from behind. Ratfi arrives to try and help, although he knows next to nothing about guns and combat. But what finally does kill the enemy bot is Penley and Arata flying the hopper and landing it on top of this enemy bot. Even though Murderbot is able to remove the module, the damage has been done and is unavoidable, so it grabs Rathi's gun and shoots itself. Every episode, again, every one of these short episodes, we get a little bit more of the layers peeled back of this world, this universe that we're in, for where we are, what we're dealing with. I'd say the most interesting piece of that this time was at the very beginning, where we got this sense of these workers that are putting together these sec units. Thoughts generally on how we were introduced to this? Seems like people who are forced to do this work, told to take pride in their work, but they've
Yeah.
got years and years ahead of them of putting together these sec units.
Yeah, it was one of my biggest questions is why are they indentured servants exactly?
Right, right.
Um, I thought it was well done. Again, they don't give us that kind of exposition dump that wouldn't make sense with how people talk, right? Instead, they just kind of throw us in and manage to give us some information through dialogue that feels natural, right? Like how people would actually be talking to one another. So I thought that was good. But yeah, that detail really is one of the things that stuck for me when they start saying, how many years they have left on their indenture. So, who are these people? Why are they indentured servants? Are they criminals? Where this is like
Yeah.
a punishment kind of thing? I'm thinking about the real world a little bit and how things have occurred. I mean, uh, there have been other kinds of situations of indentured servitude, I think, to my memory or understanding of history, where maybe it's been more like for um, some benefit of immigration or something like
Mm.
that. So yeah, that was one of my big questions. Why are these people indentured? And I hope we get more information about that. Do you have any speculative thoughts?
Yeah, that's what sort of rang with me as well. Primarily their boss saying, "Take pride in your work," which I guess the question inevitably is, well, why would you if you're an indentured servant, you're required to work there for a certain number of years, and you're just there because you have to be? And then does that situation also lead to any speculation as to why these things apparently go rogue all the time, why they might malfunction, why they might not be built to a certain way that they, were intended? Why are these things having these sort of moments where, we haven't seen Murderbot's flashback in a while of whatever massacre he was involved in, but do they fail because of something inherently bad in the design or fail because you've just got unmotivated workers putting these things together?
Yeah, let's jump to that because I think this is sort of the big question of the episode. You have that remark from one of the techs, the head tech or whatever. She's talking to this trainee guy.
Mhm.
So it wasn't entirely clear to me whether or to what extent she was joking when she said, "Yeah, they go rogue all the time. Don't you watch the news?" You know,
Yeah,
because it seems like if they went rogue all the time to the extent where it was all over the news, that might be kind of a problem
yeah.
in
They
terms
might be
of
shut down for a while. Yeah.
you know, the business of it is that you're supposed to be renting people sec units that do a good job, not sec units that, according to the news, are constantly going rogue and killing their
Right.
owners or whatever. Um, but we do know that they at least go rogue sometimes, right? Now,
Sometimes.
what does that mean? in one sense, Murderbot has gone rogue because it has broken its governor module or whatever,
Yeah,
and has free will, but it didn't proceed to start killing people.
right.
We also get, though, in this episode, ultimately, the other bot that we saw last week that I wish the show would give us some way to refer to.
Bad,
I
bad,
just
bad, bad bot, enemy bot. Yeah,
called the badass bot a couple
yeah,
times. At first, I wasn't entirely sure if it was a bot or a human being in a suit, but I think we got confirmation this episode that
yeah,
it was a bot because there's no way that any kind of human being would survive a mining drill through what would have been the heart.
yeah. It just
You
had
know,
some like purple goo coming out of it or something. So yeah,
the purple goo also, yeah, but um, so it's definitely a bot. Anyway, um, it apparently took control of one of the sec units there at Deltfall previously to kill everyone. And then here in this episode is trying to do the same thing with Murderbot, right? To where ultimately Murderbot realizes that the bad bot is like missing the human beings on purpose, comparing it to a stormtrooper, basically. But he says like it's like I think I carried a bad TV show or whatever. Um, but he realizes that it is because they want it to look like Murderbot malfunctioned and killed everyone, right?
yeah,
So a couple of questions there hang together. How often does a sec unit go rogue? How often is it the case, though, that what's really happening is someone's taken control of that sec unit and made it do this? In which case, we have to speculate about why and what their motivations are and what's going on there. Um, but then there's also the question of, well, are there other cases where, as you were suggesting, Ryan, they quote unquote go rogue because they're poorly made, because they're
yeah,
made by people who are slaves, basically. And we see a little bit of that. There's humor to it as well, where Murderbot in the voiceover is saying, "Oh, there's great quality control," and
right,
the supervisor's like, "Who made this? I guess it's usable." You know?
yeah. That's right. Well, it's within limits. We'll use it anyway. Yeah.
Yeah, so
I
there's kind of all
wondered
those
if this
questions
was
together.
yeah,
But
enemy bot of whatever it is or whatever its name is. If this is one of the sense of sort of a tie up the loose ends bot, or this is then you're going to assassinate the assassin bot. This is the corporation sending something to clean up all the mess that they've made with these things that malfunction and go rogue, and then we're gonna, terminate that one that we sent to terminate all the others. That type of situation. I do still wonder, since we got a glimpse of it here, yeah, what this corporation is and how they're all tied into this, which I'm sure is quite heavily we'll learn by the end of the season.
yeah, but see, it would almost make more sense to me if the bot we're talking about came from someone in opposition to the corporation. It doesn't seem to be a sec unit. It looks different.
Yeah.
It also seems to be like more advanced than the most advanced sec unit we've seen, I think. Yeah, I think. Um, but I think this is a possibility we need to consider, that maybe the motivation is to undermine the corporation by um, making everyone think that these sec units are unreliable, just might go rogue anytime and kill people, and so on and so forth, or something like that. Whereas if it
Yeah.
were the corporation, I have a little bit more trouble landing on what the motivation would be for doing this.
Yeah, I wonder if we're gonna get I don't know, I'm just speculating at this point, but this is some sort of capitalist corporate competition. Somebody's got a better version, and so they're going to go out and try to eliminate, the corporate that other corporation that we know, eliminate their sec units, show their flaws, disrupt them in some way, position them that they're unreliable, and so their version is just the better version, which is made by people who are more reliable, ends up being the one that who knows where we're going. We're just been introduced to a lot of different concepts here, and we have to kind of speculate on how to tie these pieces together.
Yeah, and I'm by no means suggesting that the spot came from like the good guys, right? Because
You're right.
it's
Right.
just killed a bunch of people and so on and so forth. Um, but yeah, why? The other thing I keep thinking about is, okay, well, is there something on this planet that is important and valuable? And there have been a couple of things pointing in that direction a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm sure we'll find out more. Like I'm sure that's precisely where this story is going. This particular bot does get destroyed. I mean, it's totally crushed by the hopper finally. So good for Pinley and Arata saving the day, crushing it with the hopper. But who was it working for? There's clearly more to that story, right?
That certainly is coming. Yeah.
The other thing I wanted to be sure to talk about before we kind of leave the cold open behind, you mentioned the different faces, and there is that line about it making them easier to track if they go rogue and things like this. There's also a question I got to thinking about where the faces come from.
Yep. We referenced this RoboCop situation, I think, last week. Yeah, like what are we doing here? Where is this coming from, and how does that the faces integrate into whatever biological component exists within these sec units?
Yeah, yeah. So not just the faces, but I guess whatever flesh they're using.
Hmm.
Um, my best guess is that they're harvesting flesh from the dead. But
Yeah.
even there, what dead? All dead people? Some dead people? Your enemies at war?
Yeah.
Prisoners? Everyone?
The indentured servants that die on the job. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Like, how seriously should we take their little remarks about you're not going to make it 6 years?
Yeah, right.
Um. So yeah, I mean, I hope we get more of that. I do wonder because none of the characters in that scene get a name.
Right, exactly.
They're all in the credits as like tech number one, tech number two, trainee,
Yes.
you know.
Yes.
So I'm not sure if we're going to see any of those specific people again. Maybe, but I do
Yeah.
hope in one way or another we get more information about the surrounding world and the creation of the sec units and all of this stuff. And yeah, I'm
Yeah,
sure we will. I'm sure we will.
I'm almost enjoying more, at least in this episode, that cold open of building out the universe than, you know, I thought maybe it's wrong to say not much happened in the other 15 minutes of the episode, but it gave us much more information and I think was more valuable to our story or that we saw at the beginning than, say the rest of we're just rescuing Murderbot in the last half of this episode.
Right. And I mean, I find all of that to be entertaining. It was a little bit frustrating that Murderbot, on the one hand, knows that it's been implanted with this override module, but on the other hand, can't get it together enough to remove the override module or tell Mensa
Right.
about it or whatever. There's also a lot of humor in that, which I enjoy about the show. Like at the one point he says, "Why am I just standing here?" Like my threat indicators say everything's fine while the guy's shooting at him and stuff. And I did also enjoy how towards the beginning when he's malfunctioning, he says it's a memory dump of like the most played things. So of course it's the credits for the Sanctuary Moon show.
Sure.
It's
Yeah.
all glitching. So, I mean, I enjoyed it, but I think it's fair what you said. Not a lot happened when it comes down to it, if you want to boil down to it. Um, the bot
Yeah, that's right.
implants him with a control module. Mensa shows up. They manage to run away. Ultimately, they crush the bot with the hopper. He gets the module out, but it's already done its work. So he shoots himself. That's it. That's
Yeah.
all that happens.
I coming out of this, I think leading into episode 5, the most interesting question is something you referenced in your piece, which is okay, what is the crew's reaction to Murderbot shooting itself? Do they decipher that as a, well, this is part of its functionality where if it's since something is going wrong, it self-destructs, or this is a sort of free will choice that I'm doing this because I don't want to harm the people that I'm entrusted with? Sort of how do they take these actions and say, oh, our sec unit is either working properly or is very much working improperly moving forward?
Yeah, I do wonder about that because I feel like Garathan, who isn't in this episode, but I feel like he has more of an understanding of what the sec units are supposed to be like than the others. He's got whatever kind of implant himself.
Yeah.
Although Murderbot says you're gonna have to kill me, I'm presuming he's not dead. It's not dead. Sorry. At the end of the
I,
episode, when after it shoots itself, right?
I
Um,
I would think not.
so or at least can be repaired, you know. So I'm imagining they go back, Garathan works on repairing the Murderbot or whatever. And yeah, I really am wondering if through all of this it comes out that they're dealing with a sec unit that has achieved free will and all of that, which is I kind of think it might go that way. In
Yeah.
particular because this is a group of human beings who would be like, "Oh, that's great."
Yeah, that's right.
Mensa would be all
Finally.
for it. She's like, "You're a person,"
Exactly.
you know?
Exactly. If
Yeah,
there's a group of people that one sec unit needs to have that revelation with, it's this group of people that don't believe in, yeah, hiring these sec units anyways.
yeah. So then, do they? This is what I'm imagining. They discover that they're curious about what was going on at Delphal and so on, and that
Hmm.
then they're setting themselves up in some way as being antagonists to the corporation because they
Yeah.
already sort of are. But
Yes.
then, are they really going to try to take on the corporation or just end up being outlaws or something? Or I don't know. There are various possibilities, but imagine it going in something like that direction. I'm looking forward to it. I've been enjoying this so far.
Yeah, I certainly have as well. I think, to your point, where we go in the last, one more episode, we'll be halfway through. Seems like not much time if this crew becomes a sec unit liberation front. These things can have free will and can be, there's not much room to expand the world, expand the story that much. We have to do a lot to do sort of with where we are and what Deltfall is and what they're doing. Maybe that's if this gets continued in the future, but I mean, certainly as you said, the right group of people to do that.
Yeah. Any thoughts about the polycule? We haven't talked about the polycule at all. It's in there. I feel like this is also one of those things where I've written recap articles and I don't think I've really talked about it either, other than
Yeah.
some brief remarks about Murderbot being disgusted by human sexuality and things like that. But yeah, you got this little polycule going on.
Yeah. No, 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 no thoughts. I'll save that for your expert recap. You can touch on that more.
You got a contract.
Yeah.
I did laugh when it's a Rothy who like doesn't even know how to use the gun is going to go try to save the day, and you
Yeah.
get this
Yeah.
line from I don't remember which one of them said it now, whether it was Pinley or Arata, who says like, "You're being very macho. It's disgusting." I thought that was kind of entertaining. Like these are a certain type of people that they managed to
Yes.
characterize in pretty quick ways, but really well. It's like, okay, I know what type of people we're dealing with here. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. No, it is, despite there are pieces, yes, that have done a lot of world building, and then the parts that haven't, I've been surprisingly very entertained by it.
yeah. You want to talk about Sanctuary Moon a little bit more?
Yeah, just maybe just from watching USS Callister turn into Infinity recently, just thought the parallel is quite funny when Murderbot is sort of put into the Sanctuary Moon world, and he's almost, I guess he's an officer on this ship, and we get to see him there with Clark Gregg and Jack McBrayer and all of them. Yeah, just found some funny, interesting parallels there.
Yeah, great. And I'm enjoying all of that. and Sanctuary Moon. I mean, it's also kind of playing on Star Trek vibes, but it definitely seems cheesier and more melodramatic than Star Trek.
Yes.
I think, you know, we haven't seen a whole lot of it. But I don't recall any point on Star Trek where they're like, "Did you make love to the robot?" Anyhow, anyhow, yeah, loving it. I wonder if I hope we see more TV shows that Murderbot likes to
Yes,
watch. We've seen two so far, I think.
I agree. I agree.
Sanctuary Moon, and then the other one, which isn't as good. Strife
Yes,
of the
I forget that.
Galaxy, I think is what it was
That's
called.
it. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, so we'll see what else there might be in there. But okay, good. Anything else you want to say on this one before we wrap up?
No, I think that's it. Once again, another very, very quick 22 minutes. Haven't looked into next week's, but this seems pretty consistent so far.
Yeah, I think so. And I mean, I kind of enjoy it. Little quick bites, and we're finding enough to talk about. There's some interesting stuff going on. Hopefully, find out more about the surrounding world as things proceed. I'm confident we will. So, okay, we'll be back next week, continuing to talk about Murderbot. Hopefully, you've enjoyed the podcast. If so, please do a good rating, review, all that good stuff. If you're on YouTube, hit the thumbs up. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Greatly appreciated. You can check out tvobsessive.com. I am writing recap articles on Murderbot each week if you want to read those there. You can also find written work on any number of other TV shows. That encourage you to go poke around the site. You can follow TV Obsessive on social media. Search for TV Obsessive, and you should find us, whatever platform you're on. And we'll be back with you next week.
All right, looking forward to it. See you for episode 5.